Welcome in to another episode of the Barnes on Bama podcast. I'm your host, Owen Barnes, and we have a lot to discuss. Don't want to waste too much time because I have an incredible interview for this episode today, but wanted to discuss a couple of things here up at the top. First of all, if you're not subscribed to the channel, if you could do me a favor and subscribe down below, drop a comment, like anything, it really does help me out. I really do appreciate it. We're pushing for 1,000 subscribers. Additionally, if you do hear any ads on this episode on Spotify or Apple, it's because I am a part of the Believe Podcast Network, and anything you could do to help out those sponsors, I really would appreciate it. Not to waste any time, I have an absolutely incredible interview that I've just conducted with Max Barr, Max Barr CBB on Twitter, and of Southeastern 16. Southeastern 16 is a channel that I have respected for quite a long time. Funny enough, we're actually both members of the Believe Podcast Network, which I did not know before I joined, but that was a sight for sore eyes. I was very happy to see them. These guys, they cover SEC basketball every week. They know everything about SEC basketball, and Max is just a wealth of knowledge about this topic. So wanted to bring him on to kind of talk. We talked SEC basketball, we talked Alabama basketball. I think anybody that's kind of subscribed to the channel and interested in that kind of content is really going to appreciate it. So don't want to waste any more time, but want to go over to the interview that I conducted with Max Barr. And I am joined today by none other than Max Barr of Southeastern 16. You can find him over on Twitter at Max Barr CBB. How you doing today, Max?
Well, now that you have asked me to start talking some college hoops on this fine mid-September Friday evening, life couldn't be better. Owen, life couldn't be better. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah. And as you mentioned, we're talking some college hoops. I know my viewership, and we kind of talked about it before we got going. My viewership, I cover football content, but I know my viewers care a ton about basketball. And obviously over at Southeastern 16, y'all have some pretty rabid basketball fans as well. For any of you that don't currently watch their stuff, I'm not sure why not. They do a great job covering SEC hoops. One of the main groups that do that outside of, Field of 68 from a national level. But wanted to start the conversation with some Alabama talk. Obviously I know that, and I'll put the link down in the description, but you kind of did the breakdown of the visual depth charts for every team. So I know you have a little bit of an idea of obviously who's on each team. But if you were to say, who is your breakout guy that some people aren't expecting, I have a name in my mind that I've kind of got two names that I've been hearing floated a lot, but from somebody who obviously doesn't look at the same team every day, who is your, this guy's is poised to have a huge season?
So there's two names that in conversations I've had this offseason, there's two names that for this exact question get brought up a lot. And then my answer is even a different one. So the most I hear is Aiden Sherrill, because he's, stepping into this big time role. The minutes are going to increase. The production should increase, the volume, all that. You could totally see it. We just got those roster updates. He's up to 255, putting on some muscle, going to bang around a little bit with these big SEC boys. And then Jalil Bethea, Miami transfer, super talented, nice shot. But if you're a college basketball fan, you know how things were last season for Miami. So new regime, new system, very shooter offensive friendly system. You got Jalil Bethea there. But mine is Houston Millett. I don't know why he's just not being talked about in SEC circles. You look into kind of what past coaches and past teammates have said about his leadership and stuff like that, and just locker room type of guy. And not even to mention, I don't know what episode of the Hey Coach it was, but I'm pretty sure Oates said Millett might be the second or third leading scorer on this team. Now, I don't know if he's just hyping up his guys, but I mean, hey, if you want to talk about a guy that has played a ton of basketball, can shoot the heck out of it, and has a history of being called a great leader, great person, great teammate, I don't know how Houston Millett's not being talked about a little bit more.
Yeah, and the thing with Houston is, for anybody that has kind of followed his story or knows anything about him, his dad's the athletic director at UC Riverside, or I think he actually took a new job, but he was the
I
athletic
believe he's
director.
in the SEC now somewhere.
Is he at South Carolina? Maybe.
Might be. I'm
Maybe
not 100% sure.
I think it might be South Carolina. He was previously the athletic director at UC Riverside. Houston Millette's a guy that's super introspective around himself. Like he's somebody that a lot of people point to of this guy's going to be a coach in the future. His career is not playing future basketball; it's coaching. He is somebody also that his shot, and I talked about this a ton last year. His shot is so pretty. Like it is just when it comes off the hand, you assume it's going in every time. And it's not that he shot it at the level of Latrell Wrightsell. Obviously they didn't have the same number of attempts or anything like that, but like Houston's shot gives you so much confidence when it's coming off the hand. So I really like that one. A name that I'm kind of sounding the alarm bells on, and it's the name that coming into transfer portal season is the name that I thought I was going to care about the least. And it's actually one of the ones that I'm caring about the most is actually Keaton Bristow.
Ooh.
He's a guy that when you hear people talk about him, when you see practice footage, I've heard some people that have been to practice. I know Jordan Harper mentioned it when he was at practice. Like multiple people have said Keaton Bristow's name, and he's a guy that the defense just flows effortlessly to. I posted a video a couple of weeks ago where Henry Barrera had him. He had like a 40 and a half inch vertical. Like the athleticism is just off the charts. He's a guy that you don't really hear a lot about because he came from Tarleton State. But I mean, he was freshman of the year in the WAGs. I mean, it's not. That's not saying nothing when you're talking about somebody that obviously has the skill talent to be in the SEC.
I think I saw that clip you're talking about, that vertical. It was like a 41-inch vertical or something like that. Some sort of either tying a record or setting a record in some form. What do you expect minutes wise from Bristow? Because you also have 6'8" London Jemison, who's a top 40 recruit, who's a freak athlete. You've got Amari Allen, who we can't stop hearing enough good things about Amari Allen, another 6'8" guy. Great problem to have here.
Yeah. And the problem you're talking about is if it were me and you were to ask me who the odd man out is, unless there's some type of injury, I think your odd man out is Collins, the new guy. He is for sure going to be one that I think is an odd man out. I think he was a kind of a break glass in case of emergency. I heard some people say that wasn't the case. It's really tough for me to believe that though. Mm-hmm. The other one that I think is going to play sparingly, but I still think he finds a way to get some minutes is Davion Hannah. I think that Hannah is more of a defensive option. So he's going to be somebody, where you see Oates throw him out there if the effort isn't what he wants to see, right? Like, but it's a scholarship guy to put in the effort, right? When Oates was here as a first-year coach, he used to throw Britton Johnson out there, just like whoever he could. Like, he would just throw somebody out there and see if he could get some extra effort. But I think, like, that's what you're going to see out of Davion Hannah. I just think his offense is a little behind his defense. And so that's going to hurt him in being in the Oates system. I think we have enough two-way guys this year that, like, that's going to be a bit of a problem. From a Bristow perspective, it would not shock me if we're seeing 12 to 15 minutes out of him, maybe. Anything more than that, I think that he's taken some insane step forward. Now, obviously, as an Alabama fan, like, playing more than that is a good thing. Playing less than that isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because you have such a stacked roster, like you just talked about. Like, that is a stacked position for Alabama, that 6'8" to 6'10". Like, we're not even talking about Taylor Bowen, which may be one of the most alien-like guys to play basketball, like, from a defensive perspective. Like, so that's the thing that you have to look at with this Alabama team is they have a great problem from who they have. The guy who, when I asked some buddies, like, hey, what do y'all want me to ask Max about? They want to know your thoughts on LeBaron Phylon. Obviously, he's returning, but he's returning into a substantially different role than he was in last season. How do you think LeBaron obviously steps into that role? Do you think that it's something that he's going to take some time to get used to? Because I don't know if you've seen our schedule recently, but we only have one. There's only one get right game, and then you get thrown to the Wolves. So what are your kind of thoughts on LeBaron?
LeBaron coming back. when we got those, when everyone got those notifications, you remember, you get the three different CBB analysts that you have your notifications turned on during transfer season and all that. When I got those notifications, Phylon is returning, I had to almost triple take. I remember I texted my partner at Southeastern 16, Blake, right away. I mean, Phylon's coming back, because every day, every week during those NBA decisions, you're looking at like NBA feedback. You're looking at what do you think he's going to do? Okay, I think 60% he's going to stay in, 40% he comes back. We were doing that for like all those fringe SEC guys. Phylon was always in the conversation is like, yeah, okay, we'll talk about him, but he's going to stay in the draft. We'll talk about him, but he's going to stay in the draft. I think this could be a first team all SEC, like top 5 player in the league. One thing I would like if we're talking just little analytics, I would like the turnover rate to come down just a little bit if he's gonna be the lead guy. Aiden Holloway plays, a little bit of the lead as well, bringing the ball up, but get that turnover rate down a little bit more. Take some sophomore leaps. Was not expecting him last year to start out of the gate like he did. I mean, remember he was a Kansas guy and then comes over after decommitting, so it wasn't always on our radar last offseason, and then just comes firing out of the gate. I remember specifically I sent out a tweet, I think in late November last year, and it was like something along the lines of, every time I think LeBaron Phylon I've realized what type of player he is, then he does another play and I'm like, wait, he's even better than I thought he was. Wait, he's even better than I thought he was. And I don't think we're done with that. I think that's going to happen all year next year. Really one of my favorite players in the whole league.
And I think kind of what you're talking about is the place where I think he was completely underrated last year. Obviously, not to Alabama fans, but to the league as a whole, was his defense. People think about like Mark Sears' floater to beat Auburn. One play before that, Phylon gets the steal and the slam, right? Like one play before that, it like sets it up. So it's kind of the standpoint of, when you think back to last season, you really look at some of the highlights and some of the things that he did. Like, he was really all over the floor, even if he wasn't making the score, right? Whether it was getting the steal or whatever. Of course, he had some shooting woes, but he was never meant to be that. He wasn't Mark Sears. He wasn't ever meant to be that type of shooter, that type of guy. I agree with the turnovers. I think it is something that we're going to expect to, see out of him more. I do also agree, though. I don't know if you've seen any recent photos of Aiden Holloway, but he has put on some weight and some muscle, and I think that that's going to help him, potentially be able to play through some additional contact. So I would suspect that you're going to have Aiden, obviously, holding the ball or, handling the ball some, but obviously LeBaron's going to have to be handling it some. Also, you get Latrell back, so I'm sure that's going to be, kind of your 3-headed attack from the point guard position. I guess the last thing that when you really look at Latrell that you kind of have to note, and you were talking about the Kansas thing, but the thing that kind of blows my mind about Latrell is anybody that followed that recruitment, he was an Alabama kid that always wanted to come to Alabama from multiple sources. Like, he was an Alabama, I don't want to say soft commit, that's not what I want to say, but like, he was an Alabama. If Nate Oates gave him the go ahead, like, he wanted to come to Alabama. And the funny part is Nate Oates was most concerned about his defense. That's why he didn't want to get LeBaron Phylon, was because of his defense. He was concerned because of what he was scoring back at Baker and all the, back when he was in Mobile, he just wasn't playing much defense. And it was a situation of he wasn't playing it, not he couldn't play it. And Nate just wasn't sure about that. And then we start hearing reports out of camp of Mark Sears has his hands full. Like you started hearing that pretty consistently. And I think that's what, is reminding me about like the Keaton Bristow or Amari Allen. That was what you were hearing out of LeBaron Phylon last offseason, right? You were hearing, hey, he's given some of your starters more than they can handle. Not say he's going to take their spot or anything, but you might want to watch out for this guy. So I think that's where my, Amari Allen and Keaton Bristow kind of, these may be two guys you need to watch out for. Because Allen was a guy who, a lot of people thought he was going to be he played a bunch of bad competition in Wisconsin. He's not going to be that good. So very curious about that one. I guess one
quick aspect I before we move on from Phylon. Think about this also, Alabama fans. Think about this. You need a stop. Oh, you just need a stop. You need one. And you're playing good guards. You're playing dang good guards. You're in the SEC. You're probably playing some good guards. You're going to trot out there for defense on the 1, 6'4", on the 2, 6'3". It's only going to get taller from there out. That's something that Alabama has not been able to do in the past few years, is throw out a little positional size there as well. Now with Trelly getting healthy and Phylon another year, you can throw out 6'4", 6'3" at the 1 and 2 and have some positional size defensively.
And when you're talking positional size, I agree with that standpoint. And I think Luttrell's defense would keep him on the floor in that instance because his, perimeter defense is really good. But if you had to go true size,
You could go bigger.
You could go Bethea at the 2.
Yes.
And just slide a Keaton or a Amari Allen or somebody else at the 3, and it gets massive really quickly.
Yes.
I mean, it gets huge very, very quick. Not to say that this team is going to do, obviously, what Duke did last year, but it reminds me of what Duke's, it almost feels like Nate Oates lost to Duke last season in the Elite Eight because of the size they had at every position and said, I'm not going to let that happen again. I'm going to get size at every position.
There's going to be options. There's going to be lineup options. There's going to be like little possession, defensive little nuggets per possession that Alabama's going to be able to do that they haven't in the past few years.
And I think all that said, and I still think this might be one of your best shooting teams ever, especially if Bethea works out at a level that I think he potentially could with his talent. I think that who you have on the floor, you have a true stretch 5, whether you're playing Williamson or Sherrill. Obviously, your 4 is always going to be a stretch. I mean, currently from a 3-point shooting perspective, I mean, your worst 3-point shooters, if I had to pick them right this minute, is obviously Onjiaka, and then it's Hannah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the two guys I mentioned that, might be, either lower minutes or semi-red shirts. Okay. If that's the only 2 guys that are not shooting the 3 well, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and it's gonna be such an advantage over the rest of the league, shooting wise. It's pretty much the sole reason why I keep moving Alabama up my SEC preseason rankings. I'm gonna have them probably top 4 or top 3 because of this shooting advantage. It's going to be good on its own, but what I do in the offseason to try to get a picture of who's going to be the better shooting teams and who's going to really struggle from outside. In the offseason, I take every player that's on the new team and I take their 3-point numbers from last year and just kind of, if the newly put together team had a team 3-pointer number from all the different players last year, I add them all up. I do makes, percentage, and then I do like a composite ranking. Alabama's number 1, and it's not even remotely close. This year's squad last year made 371 threes. That's 60 more than the next highest team in the SEC. They've blown away the rest of the league three-pointer numbers from last year.
And when I was doing some research on some of my previews that I did, something that I noticed, I know this, outside of the guys, do you know who one of the lowest percentage shooter is currently on this team from last season that played last season? So not a freshman, but a guy who played last season.
Not looking at my notes.
Might surprise you.
Phylon?
It's Jalil Bethea by a substantial margin.
That's right.
His shooting percentage last year was terrible.
Yeah.
And it might be Phylon by a little bit. I would have to check Phylon's. Because I wasn't considering Phylon. I know Bethea is a really, let's see, curious. Oh, no, yeah. It's still Jalil Bethea. Phylon had shot at 31.5% last season, and Bethea shot at, let's see. Oh, sorry. No, Phylon did beat him out slightly. Jalil shot at 32. But keep in mind, a guy that's what you have to put into perspective. Mm-hmm. In Nate Oates' offense, Jalil Bethea shot at the same percentage as LeBaron Phylon.
Yep.
Those are not the same quality of shooter. I love LeBaron Phylon, but they're not even close to the same type shooter. I mean, there's a reason why Jalil Bethea was technically a higher ranked shooter than Con Knipple and all these other guys that are just got drafted, right? Obviously we can, whether he has it and puts it together, I'm not saying he is, we will see, but there's a reason why he was ranked above there, and that was a consensus that he was ranked above those guys. He clearly has the shots to shoot. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think I'm looking down right now at my 3-point numbers, and I think there's only 3 teams I would say that are going to have the 3-point like spurt ability that Alabama has. That you could be down 9 points and within 3 possessions, it's automatic, it's tied like that, and you're like, what the heck?
Kentucky.
I think I don't even have them. I wouldn't even say them. I would say I was gonna say Vanderbilt with Tyler Nickel. I was gonna say Oklahoma with Pack, and I was gonna say Mississippi State with Josh Hubbard. Although like Kentucky as a team has shooters, but I was talking just like 1 or 2 guys that are gonna, if they're open, they're wide open analytics, are close to 50%. They are almost a guarantee make when they're open. Alabama's got like a handful of them. The rest of the league, there's only like a handful of them.
I see what you're saying. Like, if you leave just about anybody from Bama open, that's going to be in our top 10. They're expected to make the shot. They all have the green light. Every one of them has the green light.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you go through the rest of the league, and it's like half the teams don't even have one. It's a big advantage. I mean, you mentioned Kentucky. Maybe Aberdeen. Maybe if Cam Williams is, but they don't have a proven Kobe Brea. They don't have an Aiden Holloway. They don't have a Latrell Wrightsell. Like that.
Funny enough, their best shooter last year was probably Trent Perry, and he's not even on their team this year.
The proven knockdown sniper, there's not a lot of them in the league this year.
Do you think, as we're shifting over to the league, do you think that's a lot of your 5th-year senior guys being gone, your guys like Grant Nelson and Mark Sears that are no longer on rosters? Do you think that's kind of what we're seeing, more people just kind of come back to the mean almost?
Yep. And the SEC, for you folks that have been watching for years now, you know how bad the shooting has been. Last year was, we had Chaz Lanier, Walter Clayton, Mark Sears, Caleb Grill. Even on some of these, not so elite teams, you had a absolute sniper at Trey Johnson. Just go down the line of these teams. Josh Hubbard, Sean Padula. You have like a guy that's on almost every team last year that's just going to rip the net when he's open. And you look at the projected rosters for next year on a lot of these teams, you're like, I don't know where their spot up shooter comes from.
And I guess that's something that I also have to kind of think about when I'm looking at, my projections for where Alabama's going to finish next year, because, I look at this team as defense. Obviously, Nate Oates has gone with a length perspective, but I'm still a bit concerned about the defense. I know that it's something he's been preaching, but I still think the offense is going to be better than the defense this year. I think most people would agree with that statement. But that, because of what you just mentioned, Alabama's team that went to the Final Four, and not to say that this team would do that, right? But you can do it off getting hot shooting, right? Mm-hmm. The inability to leave somebody open, and when that inability is you can't leave anybody open, that changes a lot, right? And I think the guy who honestly could make that be even worse is a guy like LeBaron Phylon. We just talked about him. Mm-hmm. LeBaron Phylon's 3-point shot last year was not great. It was okay, but like for stretches, he had problems. And that's probably one thing the league told him, hey, if you're going to be a guard in the league, we probably need you to take some extra shots. And I know Nate kind of talked about it last season of it took a little bit for him to get used to the practice, to get used to what it takes to compete at the college level. All right, so we had quite a few interconference transfers. This year we had, Aberdeen goes from Florida to Kentucky. You have reigning bully ball player go from Alabama to Kentucky. Yep. You've got Boogie Fland. Who is kind of the transfer, whether it's interconference or not, do you think is going to make such a huge impact of like that team would be a completely different person without him. Obviously, I think that Alabama, has some guys that obviously will make impacts, but I think that there's some other teams that their transfers might be more important than their returners. Who do you think kind of built the ship off the transfers?
Okay, this is a fantastic question. This is a fantastic. I'm going to give you one no one's talking about. It's not a flashy one. Xavier Brown, point guard for Oklahoma. Not intra-conference. He comes from St. Joseph's, but you think about what Porter Moser was able to do last year with a Jeremiah Fears, and how much over expectation he was able to get Fears, he got every ounce out of Jeremiah Fears that he could get. And now you get a Nigel Pack, who, if you guys aren't familiar with Nigel Pack, he's going to be one of the best shooters in the country next year. Absolute sniper. Xavier Brown playing next to him with a pure shooter right next to him. You got to go look at some St. Joseph's games from last year. This kid is unbelievable. No one's talking about Xavier Brown. I think Oklahoma is going to be one of those. Oh wow! Well, we knew they were going to be all right. They made the tournament last year. Porter Moser, he's got a Final Four under his belt. Decent coach, but just it's Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma can make some noise next year. I really like their guys, and I'm going to give you one more, and it's our favorite guy over at Southeastern 16, and he goes by the name of Lassina Traore. He is going to be Sean Miller's big man. Comes over from Xavier, but he was out all of last year at Xavier. So no one really knows about this guy. You got to go back to Long Beach State to know who Lassina Traore is. Who is Lassina Traore? He's the preseason frontrunner for Bully Ball Player of the Year in the SEC. That's what he is. He might be the best rebounder in the country. He's gonna be at Long Beach State. He would look at some of his box scores 2 years ago when Long Beach State was good. You're talking 15 and 15, just easy, just double-digit rebounds by halftime, easy. Texas is going to have one of the best rebounders in the whole nation, and just no one talks about it. So I'll give you two kind of underrated guys there.
Yeah, and honestly, when you're thinking about rebounding, funny enough, my mind immediately went to Texas A&M, and then I forgot that they have a new coach. You were talking rebounds, and like so much changed this offseason that in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, like state of Texas just keeping up the rebounders. I'm like, never mind. Like Texas A&M may not be that good rebounding this year. I mean, Pop Isaacs, Rylan Griffin, Mbako. I don't think any of those guys scare me from a rebounding perspective. I'm not saying they can't. I'm sure they can, but like that just it's going to be a completely different league. I had a friend, and I want to read his question. I think some of the Kentucky people who may tune into this one may enjoy it.
Sure.
He said that they prioritize defenders bringing in Denzel Aberdeen and Mo. Do you think that their offense is going to be able to keep up the pace having a better defense? That's something that we've seen on the Alabama side of sometimes when our defense is really good, it hurts your offense and vice versa. Do you think Kentucky and Mark Pope's going to be able to put together that defense-offense combination? What's kind of your thoughts about the Cats?
So I've done a deep dive on this, and it's a great question, and whoever asked it really knows what they're talking about. So I think what's going to you're not going to have as much perimeter scoring last year. There's no Kobe Bray, there's no Jackson Robinson, but your free throw rate, some of these free throw rates on these guys are unbelievable. And you add them all together, and it's going to be a nightmare to play against. Mo Diabate, Otega Owe, and Jalen Lowe on the floor at the same time. I don't know how the defense is not going to foul with how much those three guys, they get the ball, they attack aggressively. So it's going to be a little bit of a different look. It's not going to be that pretty high flying, we're 4 seconds into the possession and Jackson Robinson just gets the outlet pass and he's ripping a three right away, green light. Not going to be as much of that. It's going to be much more physicality, ripping and running, transition, getting to the free throw line. So it's going to look different. I think it'll still be there, but it's not going to be that high flying, three balls are flying everywhere. It's going to be some aggressive physical SEC play.
So what you're telling me is Kentucky might be a part of some, 80 free throw games this year. That's
you go through and you look at the makeup of their roster did last year, and Jalen Lowe lived at the free throw line. Mo Diabate, we know what Mo Diabate does. That's his game. And Otega Owe, That guy just puts a shoulder down and can get to the rim with no matter who's guarding him. Um, so I unless they really really change their style of play to fit the Mark Pope system, which could happen, and you see some percentages go up. Um, I think this is going to be a gritty physical team.
I would be curious about that. When you're thinking about Kentucky in that way, it almost becomes the game plan for Kentucky maybe pull the Creighton defense, right? Like whatever you do, just don't foul because their shooting percentages, I think, outside of the free throw line aren't going to be that great. I mean, Otega Owe, I'm not saying he's a bad shooter, but he's not an elite shooter. Anybody who's watched this program for a while, if they're expecting Mohamed Diabate to be the 50% shooter he was last year, I will take that all day. Just
Yeah.
like on higher numbers, I just don't think that's going to happen, right? Like I don't think Kentucky, like we talked about previously, I don't think Kentucky as a team is going to shoot as well. So it almost feels like if you don't let them get to the line, right? And that may be a harder thing to say or better thing to say than do. If you don't let them get to the line, it may be a bit of tough sledding for them to be able to walk away with points because I just don't think that their offense, with the guys who they have, is going to be the exact same level as what it was.
There's going to be less inconsistency than there was last year. It might be a little bit more frustrating offensively. You might because you're gonna have to play some good defenses in the SEC, and it's a tough non-conference. But like when it's Kentucky at Tennessee and that defense is humming, probably going to be a frustrating offensive game if you're not getting good looks from the outside. It's probably going to be frustrating, but it's going to be more consistent. Like I don't think there's going to be these big, all right, we're playing Gonzaga. I don't think we're going to win. Oh, we beat Gonzaga. We're up here, but then we lose to Ohio State by 20. Now we're down here, and then we beat blah. I think the game in game out performances are going to be a little bit more consistent just because you have less 3-point variation. You're going to have less, 10 for 40 nights when getting to the line is going to be more of your focus.
Gotcha. All right. So want to finish with a couple of like overall thoughts. Who do you think is going to be the winner of the non-conference? Obviously, the SEC as a whole was the massive winner of the non-conference last year. Obviously, some teams had some huge wins, some teams took some big losses. But who do you think is going to be the team that kind of shocks people in the non-conference? I know Alabama has a ridiculous schedule. If they can do well, we could easily win the non-conference if we win a bunch of games. But that's easier said than done. I know Kentucky's obviously going to have some big matchups. Who do you think is going to kind of be the team that we go into conference play as? This team's looking really, really good. They've knocked off some top teams.
Okay, interesting. So it depends on if you want me to go with the who's going to be the Oklahoma, who's going to only play a few games and then they're undefeated top 20 and we're like, holy crap, this team hasn't lost yet. I think that could be a Mississippi State. They only play, I think it's Iowa State, and I think they have one more high major game, and that's it. If you can get a Josh Hubbard, Josh Hubbard can win any game for you. If you can get a great game out of Josh Hubbard, maybe Iowa State's new pieces are struggling to fit, and Mississippi State wins that Iowa State game, I'm pretty sure that is the only game they have in non-conference play that'll be tough. So Mississippi State is in the I would say the Oklahoma of last year range where they really only have one test or two, and if you knock that one off, you're probably going in undefeated. But then a team that I'll stay with the home. I'll stay right here with the home podcast for a team I think. I'm going to be at the game, okay? November 8th. It's going to be a beautiful Saturday in Queens, New York, and yours truly is going to be there to watch the Crimson Tide knock off the overrated St. John's Red Storm. I am confident I'm going to be there. It's if you guys lose, come and get me and blame me. I'm the curse because I'm putting the curse on it right now. I'm very confident in this one, Owen. I think you guys are going to come out. And then to follow that up, the revenge game against the Boilermakers. CJ Cox is not going 3 for 3 in the second half from 3. No way. Revenge game. I think Alabama starts out real hot with some big wins.
That I really hope we can take care of St. John's, but I will say when you were saying that, I was getting the war flashbacks of the Iona game for the MTE back. I can't remember how many years ago that was. Maybe 5 years ago when we played him when Patino was at Iona. We lost an MTE game against him, and we were a substantially better team than they were. Come to look back, Walter Clayton was on that team, so
Yes.
it happens. But I guess the last one is, who is your top four? I don't want to make you. I'm not going to put you on the spot and say who's going to win the SEC, but I want to give who are your double buys going into the SEC tournament. Who do you think is going to be kind of the top four teams? Because the way that I look at college, SEC basketball is you're either competing and are at the level that you should get the double buy into the SEC, and if a game breaks your way one way or the other, then you might win the league, or you're in that middle pack, or you're on Sadness Wednesday. Right?
Yep.
Those are kind of your three options.
I'll go Florida. I'll take the defending national champs. I know there's a lot of questions about replacing a guy like Walter Clayton, replacing guys like Will Richard and stuff, but I think that front court gets him there by itself. That front court is unbelievable. It's basically like 3 NBA players still playing in college. They all could have gone if they wanted to. Talking about Thomas Haw, Alex Condon, and Ruben Chinyelu. They all could have gotten some type of contract on an NBA team if they wanted to. So I'll go Florida. I will go Arkansas because I think that again, I'm going with what I can trust, what I know is going to win over the course of a long season, and a redshirt senior Brazil, a senior Malik Ewan, and a graduate Nick Pringle, who's already been to a Final Four with you guys. I can trust that's going to be an SEC level, top level front court. Add in the talent in the back, and I trust that a lot. A little bit worried about Arkansas shooting, but when are you not worried about Arkansas shooting? So there's 2. And I said Alabama. Alabama is kind of my flag plant, going to finish higher than expectation, and it's because of those 3-point numbers I was talking about. I think they're going to be so much better than the rest of the league that it's going to be tough for them to lose games with that much better shooting. So I'll go those 3. And then that leaves me between the 2 that I would want to decide between would be Kentucky and Tennessee. And that pretty much depends on Jaden Quaintance' health. Is Jaden Quaintance healthy and ready to go for that first January opener against you guys? Is he ready to, because they're going to need him for these big SEC games. From what I'm reading, he's starting up. I'm watching these videos of him doing these hard workouts and stuff. I'm drinking the juice. I'm drinking the JQ juice, and I'll go with Kentucky over Tennessee. A little bit worried about the depth in the backcourt around Jacoby Gillespie there for Tennessee. Love the front court, absolutely love the front court, but a little bit worried about the depth in the backcourt. I'll go Kentucky there, but also a little bit worried about the injuries.
Awesome, great to hear. And then finally, just because we have so many new coaches, I alluded to it, who is your new coach of the year? So none of the existing guys. Who is the new coach that's going to come in and you think is going to kind of have the best success? Obviously, I'm including whoever they had on their team. So they obviously, a guy like Sean Miller is getting some help because he was able to keep Tremont Mark, and he has a little bit better team than some others potentially had. Or Bucky McMillan's a complete revamp. But who do you think is your new coach that comes in and kind of, they don't have to surprise the league, but who do you think kind of wins the new coach off season?
It's going to just be because everyone loves to watch them. They're going to be so dang entertaining. That's Bucky ball that's going to be played in College Station. I've watched, I want to say 3 or 4 off-season Bucky interviews, and in every single one of them, he makes sure he says, we're going to be the fastest, highest scoring team in the country next year. I want to average the most team points per game in the country. I want to be number 1. We need to be the fastest, highest scoring. I don't know if that's going to turn into wins, but I can't wait to watch it. So I'll go Bucky ball.
So what you're saying is Bucky versus Nate Oates is first to 150 wins the game.
Sign me up. Sign me up.
Well, thank you so much, Max, for coming on the show. Want to mention a couple of things and then roll out the red carpet for you. As we previously mentioned, if you are interested in following what he has going on, he is Max Barr CBB on Twitter. You can find him at Southeastern 16. The visual depth chart that we've been kind of referencing throughout this episode, I will have linked down in the description. So if you are curious, Max has gone through. He doesn't have to do any weird blue Alabama jerseys anymore for his visual because he actually got some logos and with all the new media photos. But he has all the visual depth charts of kind of all the different teams. So you can kind of take care of who is actually on each team.
I will say, you guys don't make it easy for me with this backcourt. I don't know what the heck is gonna be. I got Phylon Trelly right now. I got Phylon Trelly because I'm expecting. Nate said he thinks he's gonna be ready, hoping for game one. So all right, but I already know there's gonna be some Aiden Holloway truthers that get on me.
I'm okay with Aiden playing 6 man of the year like he did last year. I think Aiden was pitched the JQ role coming into the offseason last year, and I think he kind of embraced it. He was a guy that had such a burst, and when you had some people, bring him in at the first media timeout, they've got 4 minutes of run on their legs, and all of a sudden you get somebody with some extra burst come in. I think Aiden embraced that. So I actually am completely fine with him not being the starter. That's my speaking. Some other people may ream me for it, but
the minutes will probably be pretty similar.
Yeah, I think the minutes, if you're talking about it from a minutes perspective, I think he's going to be really close. But from a starting perspective, I think that your lineup's probably pretty accurate from that standpoint. I think it's more likely that Bethea slides to the 2 than Aiden slides to the 2.
Yeah.
I think we could go bigger versus the other standpoint. But
it's a great problem to have.
Is a great problem to have. Please tell all the fine people what you've got going on and anything you might want them to know.
Yes, if you guys check out our YouTube channel, Southeastern 16, if you're a college hoops fan, we just did Lamont Paris, South Carolina. We've got Chris Jans, Mississippi State, Chris Beard, Ole Miss. We got Justin Gainey, who is the dad of the Gainey player, assistant coach at Tennessee, if you want to check out some Vols news. But yeah, hopefully we'll have a Tide coach on the way soon, making our rounds through the league.
Absolutely. And as always, when basketball season comes around, if y'all don't currently watch it, as I was telling him before we got going, I love watching they do morning live shows. So anytime you see somebody have a big loss or big win, you get to see what him and Blake Lavelle and everybody has to say about it. So I'm a big fan of those. So I will link everything down in the show notes. So if anybody's interested to check it out, thank you so much for coming on the show, Max Barr. I really do appreciate it. And for anybody watching, I will see you in the next episode. Peace.